Sure. Whoa, we're here with the Maxo shit. Yeah, welcome back. Secret House Against the World.
Secret House.
That's right. You can see it's me and Jet, and later you'll see in the Patreon video that we make today that Spade is actually going to be on hiatus for a little bit. He went back to the States to take care of some family stuff. So shout out to L Spade. Of course, he's still a part of the Secret House. Undoubtedly, it's the three of us. But for the next few months, it'll be me and Jet and perhaps some other guests. Yeah, other guests that we can get in. Today, we just got in on a Saturday very quickly to go ahead and give you guys some reviews. Thank you for all the comments, responses on the last few reviews. We're going to do a comment response video and specifically on like the Jadasea album and the Livy, more or less the last few reviews before you guys get to these next three that we're doing. The first album that we're going to talk about today is the sophomore release, I suppose, right? Is it sophomore?
I think
Is it third? Okay. Well, shit.
I
Well,
think he's got something else, right?
yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that what was it, Little Big Man?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
2019.
After Hours 2015 as well.
Okay. So Maxo, West Coast California artist. The album is called Even God Has a Sense of Humor. It is 14 songs, 42 minutes. And Cali MC, Maxo, he released Lil Big Man in 2019. I think this album is released on his 28th birthday. I might be wrong about that. Partially influenced by an ayahuasca trip. Which is interesting because the album is not really evocative of like psychedelics,
no.
But still, sometimes those psychedelics hit you and you feel something. I'm all for psychedelic hallucinogens as a form of consciousness expanding. This album dropped on Def Jam.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
I was tremendously surprised by that because I associated him with more of like the independent underground scene. And even before we suggested to review this one, because we were waiting for it. Lil Big Man came out 2019, so that's like 4 years ago.
A few years now, yeah.
Maybe that's the reason why this didn't come out for a while.
Label stuff.
The
like
label stuff. I have no idea why he would do that though, because he was already bubbling. I mean, I guess in this day and age, it could be a benefit to get on a major label, but it just seems like that impedes a lot of the creative process for a lot of artists.
Although
historically,
I don't hear that on this record. So,
okay.
I mean, maybe the album was already done and things were just getting signed and they had a deal or something like that.
Okay.
But this doesn't sound like a Def Jam record to me.
Sure.
There's
I mean, the
nothing particularly-
Kareem Riggins kind of collaboration makes it feel like there's budget going on. I don't know how Kareem does his collaborations, but he is a fairly well-known name who kind of operates just below the tier of like the Roots as a constant collaborator and extremely well-known and featured producer. Super talented. He's all over this.
Executive produced by Don Maker from Mount Kimby as well.
Oh yeah, he's the half of Mount Kimby. That's right. Right. In terms of the record label shit, I'm of the mind, to quote Kool Keith, every rapper on a label should resign or quit. And I don't know. I won't get into like kind of projecting into why this album sounds the way it does and perhaps that relationship with Def Jam. But I mean, shout out to Def Jam, what they did in the the 80s and the early 90s, and they've got a catalog of artists who is incredible. But yeah, really, I don't really fuck with that idea of an independent artist going to Def Jam these days. They're a business, you know what I mean? So make your money. Shout out to Maxo. That's big looks. That's big talk. That's great.
Sure.
Wonderful. Getting back to the album. First, I mean, Maxo is a really dope MC. How are you familiar with him?
Lil Big Man.
Okay.
I think that appeared on a few end of year lists among friend circles. I only listened to it like the one time and I thought it was cool, but just through osmosis, people around me, people seem to be into it.
Man, I want to say, I can't really remember how I got into it, but I know that I was listening to the album a little late, I think. I want to say that the homie Flat Stanley, who's a producer out in Southern California, shout out to him. I think he'll be back in Japan again soon. He was just out here, but we missed each other in terms of meeting. But I'll probably have him on Mega Late Show. But I think he did a track with Maxo way back in the day, and he played me a preview of it I don't know if it was ever released. I might be wrong on that, but it was either through that situation or his feature on Feet of Clay with Earl, which I thought was dope. That's like, that's one of my, kick that shit out the way. That's one of my favorite tracks on that project, Feet of Clay. And when I listened to Little Big Man, I thought it was like dope. You know what I mean? It's like pretty good, but it also just didn't stick for me. And I'm not saying that as like a critique of the album whatsoever. I just, at the time, it didn't hit. And then that's 4 years ago, so I kind of forgot about it. Did you listen to it before you went back to this project?
No, I did not.
Came to this project? No, neither did I. So there won't be many kind of critiques for me comparing it to his kind of growth and development as an MC. I'll mostly just be talking about...
I honestly, I have the algorithm to thank for this, and I don't normally do the algorithm. I try and avoid, letting the algorithm make my tastes, but we had just reviewed The Live, which, as our viewers remember, I loved. And immediately, my Apple Music was like, hey, Maxo just released an album and it's got Live on it. You should check that out.
Right. I got these other artists, man. You need some art.
You got any more of them Live records?
Yeah. In fact, you were the one that kind of told me about it. You were like, yo, Maxo, Devin Morrison, Live. Yeah. And I was like, what? I was like, for real? Is it time for, Devin to be working with Liv and Maxo to be a part of this too? For those who don't know, Devin Morrison lived out here in Japan for a whole minute. Friend of the show, good homie. I haven't seen him in a while. I'm not exactly sure what he's up to, but he's a producer on this album. He produces a track on this album. And man, he's just phenomenal. Please go listen to his music. He's doing something very different. Also recently collaborated with Masego, and the track that they made was remade by Fetty Wap, and it got big, and he's just tremendous, super talented. Shout out to Devin Morrison. To speak, like, did I explain how I know this shit? Yeah. All right, anyway, so the producers on this album, we mentioned Kareem Riggins. It's got him. It's got a Madlib track, a few by Grey Matter, who is a producer from Mutant Academy, Concept Jackson, all those cats. Shout out to VA. Last name David. Don Maker, who is from half of Mount Kimby, as well as our guy Devin Morrison. Production on this album is phenomenal. How do you want to go about this? Because we were talking, and I was like, maybe because Spade isn't here just to fill out the album, maybe we'll go track by track and discuss it. But do you want to get into like an overall first?
I want to do a little overall.
Okay.
No, I feel pretty positive about this record all in all. My first listen, I think I was more into it than maybe the second listen because I was still off that Live. And there are certainly moments on this album that are very evocative of that record.
Yeah.
And certainly I really enjoy certain moments on this album a lot, especially when it gets a little jazzier, like some of the chord progressions get, a little more even like Neptunes-y.
Yeah.
And
it's a good pull.
Yeah, I really did enjoy it on the first listen. Second, third listen, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, this is cool. I don't know if it's like transcendental in any kind of meaningful way, but I feel very, very positive about this record. It's very competent in what it sets out to do. Lyrically, he's not doing anything insane lyrically, but at the same time, I think he's quite evocative. He's quite good at setting scenes and kind of setting moods. I like the features on here a lot. Mostly positive, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that my walkaway was positive too. My first listen through the album, the first few tracks, I was just kind of like, all right, this is fine. It wasn't until I got to Devin Morrison's track that I was like, ooh, this is fucking ill. What is this? Who produces? And it was Devin Morrison. And I don't know if that's just my sensibility kicking in or whatever, but that's when the album started clicking for me. And I do kind of prefer the tail end of the album more than the first half of it.
Yeah.
But again, I think all of the production is thanks to these incredibly talented producers. There's a cohesion to the album, and it feels elevated. It feels like above a independent underground DIY homie mix it in his bedroom type of album. It feels extremely polished. All the songwriting is very conventional, and I would also say that Maxo's rhyme style is very West Coast, straightforward. There's not a lot of political poetic devices that are like head scratching metaphors. Like, let me kind of pick apart this puzzle.
It's not particularly layered.
Yeah, he uses similes, but it's very straightforward West Coast. There's kind of a realness and an honesty and authenticity that I really like about Maxo's rhyming. He has a message on this that is, it comes across as a person who's seen a lot, experienced a lot, and kind of grew from that instead of spiraling down the path that he kind of mentions a lot of his friends did and a lot of people around him did. He's kind of, figured it out a little better, and for being a 28-year-old, this is pretty mature music.
Yeah.
In comparison to a lot of the other artists who are West Coast and rapping kind of like this. He kind of reminds me of a West Side Boogie in a way, with less gangster. This album, one of the things that really stood out to me a lot. I mean, the title of the album is Even God Has a Sense of Humor, but the kind of religious theming and religious questioning and kind of philosophical thoughts on almost religious dogma that are present in this album are just fucking everywhere. It's almost like, is this a Christian album? You know what I mean?
Well, also, while we're on the title, even the cover, like the packaging is quite interesting. Like the cover of the album, you have these three like sculptures of Maxo, and
they're sculptures.
So he had done. I was reading about this. I think the Pitchfork review might have touched on it. I think it was life casting, where in which you get like some oxygen tubes put up your nose, and they literally just cast you.
Oh,
like,
wow!
In some kind of modeling clay or something, and they create these statues, and apparently it's quite a long and slow process, and you have to just kind of sit there with your eyes closed for hours while they make these casts of you, and there's three of them on the cover, and it's kind of these three very different Maxos. He's kind of smiling on one of them, he's wearing like basketball clothes on one, and he's like kind of very serious on one of the other ones, he's wearing like a button up. And you have those different Maxos that I think also appear throughout the album, and that introspection and that almost meditative quality. Obviously there's the religious element, which I kind of glossed over, but I did definitely pick up on that
on me.
Spiritual kind of element, even through the more secular kind of interesting points of it.
Yeah.
And ayahuasca, of course.
Yeah, ayahuasca would be terrible to be on while getting casted, you know what I mean? but like, that's interesting. I suppose that's one of the the shit that's kind of whack about always getting digital shit. Like you get a physical copy of something, you stare at it, you look at the credits, you leaf through the book, and that's kind of a part of the music experience that is lacking in a lot of ways with streaming being at the forefront. And I know that probably my appreciation for album covers suffers because of that, just personally. But I mean, the cover does look dope. I didn't realize that those were like busts. That would be a bust, right?
Yeah.
And so I mean, that's dope, man. I feel as though a lot of the tracks, like, he pulls together the ideas through like parts of verses connected to the choruses. I'm not exactly sure a lot of these have like straightforward songwriting, like this verse is about the chorus, there's the chorus, this verse is about the chorus, there's the chorus.
But also, I think something I really enjoy about this album, if you look at like Nuri or 48, like often it's like first person unreliable narration, which is not rare in a rap record, but he's very he's very good at kind of going back and forth between being hyper descriptive, like hyper real, Haruki Murakami set the scene, describe things in great detail, what he's feeling physically as well as what he's seeing, his emotional state, and then also being very, very vague and impressionistic, and he kind of hops back and forth between the two, and I quite enjoyed that. So like on Nuri, I think he's talking about like a family trip he went on, and you kind of get this, very vivid picture of this like young man, in a different part of the world, and like what he's feeling and what he's going through in that kind of situation. And I think that's part of when the album really, really shines for me as well.
Yeah, the lyrics are great. And he does get very personal, and I do feel like this album is pretty much just a lot of I didn't really connect the three different type of personality types emerging. I did walk away feeling like I got a pretty good idea of who Maxo is through his kind of various different positions and talking about his experiences and his relationship with God.
Yeah.
And he sounds like a really, like, he's a good dude. He sounds like a real cat. I like him. I would recommend this shit to kids. This is good rap music for kids, and it's not corny. Like, when I said, is it like a Christian album, it's weird because you think like a Christian album is like very much exalting Christ, you know, it's like, I got Jesus in my heart type of rhymes, but he really is getting into it. And growing up, you know, my nephew, you know, he's black, he lives in the South. He grew up in these like really Baptist houses, and one aspect about black culture is that it heavily leans towards Christian ideology and the interpretation of good and evil and your relationship with God and the struggles and who is the person whose God is responsible for these hardships, and like, how do I learn from, how do I overcome? And I do like that theming a lot, but I got to admit, as a materialist who doesn't, I would never call myself an atheist, and I don't even go so far to call myself agnostic. I don't think that those terms really represent how I interpret religion. I'm all for it, like, go at it, but some of those like deeper philosophical thoughts don't hit for me so well, because it's not like I don't think about these philosophical issues in the same way he does.
No, I mean, and I'm kind of with you on that, although it doesn't bother me as much as, say, on Marlon Craft.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Where he's kind of like, here are some of the evils in the world. You know how I navigate that?
Yeah.
By voting.
Right.
I voted for Obama twice. Like, you know, there's
yeah. Here's some enlightened centrism for you.
Right.
Yeah,
I think even though I'm not personally, I would describe myself as an atheist. I straight up don't believe in any kind of creator, like, or higher powers. Like, I didn't really get any sense that I was being preached to, or that, you know, this was somebody who thought he had any kind of answers, so much as just like, this is a dude my age who, you know, is pretty smart and like thinks about the world in a different way to me.
Yeah, that's very good way to take from it too. And I kind of take it as that too. I felt kind of like this is very observational, personal rhymes about him overcoming. And it does feel like you're listening to an artist and not somebody that is just trying to make songs. You know what I mean? Like, here's an idea I got. Sometimes you got to check on the strong friend. You know what I mean? It's not like that. It's like, oh yeah, let's make a song about checking on the strong friend. And it's just like, nah, this shit is really dope, man. If I could, I'd like to go through some of these tracks a little bit and not get too deep. Like, I didn't look up the lyrics or anything, and I listened to the album probably 3 or 4 times, and I only made notes while I listened to it one time. You know what I mean? I do think that this album is very good played aloud.
Yes.
Like, in the house speakers and chilling, like cleaning up, just posting up, you know, scrolling through my phone with background music. This album is incredible for that, in my opinion. The song Still, you know, it's just like kind of smooth, simple beat, kind of about the struggles
the scene
of him.
Introductory.
Yeah, the difficulty of managing his life and those kind of struggles. It's produced by Last Name David. I thought that was, you know, that was pretty dope, but I was expecting kind of a stronger drop for some reason. I just was expecting like some type of drums or something to come in. I had an L Spade moment.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah. I think he would like this record.
L Spade, I think you're absolutely right too.
I think he would like this record.
Despite like that kind of blue balls feeling, like that it only lasts for like a second, and then I realized, oh, the track's done, and then the next track comes on.
And it's very well engineered, and it's very like spaced out. It's dusty, but it sounds good from start to finish. It's very well mixed, etc., etc. So I think Spade would be into it. The musicianship is pretty good across the record as well.
The beats sound lush. There's a ton of live instrumentation mixed with sampling, and it's just executed extremely well done. It feels elevated above. Yeah. What do you think about the second track, 48 with Madlib?
I like 48 quite a bit. It was it was in the upper half of the tracks I liked for sure. I mean, I'm a lifelong Madlib fan.
Yeah, he can do no wrong.
He's one of my favorite producers, maybe my favorite producer ever. And I mean, it's more Madlib, but at the same time, it is adjusted a little bit. It's not like completely dusty like a lot of his work is. You know, I can see the connection. The Ayahuasca Trip, like the Quasimoto second album, is very like mushrooms kind of influence, and there's a bit of that. Pink Sifu's cool on here as well.
I really like the Pink Sifu joint, man. I like Pink Sifu's. Like, Pink Sifu would sound great over all of this production. This would really work well, and there's very few guest vocalist MCs. I mean, is it just Pink Sifu?
Lives on there a few times.
Well, I mean, like rappers.
Rappers.
No, it's just Pink Sifu, right?
Yeah,
Pink Sifu kills that, man. Like, you know, I love when Pink Sifu gets on his black man is God type of shit, you know, which is a whole different ideological fix point. But the way he just freaks it just feels so live. This hazy loop, I didn't recognize it as a Mad Lib beat. Like sometimes you'd be like, this is Mad Lib-ish-esque. Yes. And this shit, I didn't recognize it as a Mad Lib beat.
I mean, Mad Lib, I would say in the last, 5 years, Mad Lib has also been, I mean, he's always done that. You have like the DJ Rails shit and like the blue note shit, where, you know, he kind of goes in a very different direction and sounds very, very different. But even, you know, recently, like, I mean, the stuff he's done with Freddie Gibbs where he's like put trap beats into it. And, you know, Mad Lib's like a lot more flexible than I think people give him credit for. I think that's, you know, one of his assets as a producer. People are, you know, very quick to give him his flowers for how good his beats sound, just generally compositionally, his ability to pluck out loops,
his ear for samples,
his ear, like, but he's also like flexible, and I think he can produce something for anyone, which is great quality.
Because so many of his beats are kind of like sample amalgams and real record pulls with little like instrumentation added to it, like even just like sampling drums and kind of chopping them a little bit. People forget that he's actually an extremely competent and talented like jazz musician, jazz drummer, and he really does know how to produce and not just make a beat. So yeah, that one's dope, man. Both handed with Live. Well, I like the drums. The singing almost sounds like a sample. It's pretty dope.
I like it. I mean, I loved the Live album, so obviously, like, more Live is gonna be good for me, especially when I'm just off the back of like listening to Go the Half Pearl like a ton. I think that I'm
gonna just play the tracks in the background as we get busy.
Let that run. You know, you got the drumming element. It almost sounds like an outtake from the Live album.
Sure.
You know, it's not as weird or as interesting as that record, but at the same time, like mood-wise, the tone it sets, you know, Liv's character comes across really well. I think the interplay between the sung parts and the rapping is maybe a little too straightforward.
Sure.
Like she says a thing, and then Maxo raps about it. He like elaborates a little bit, and then she says it again, and then he elaborates a little bit more. Maybe a little bit like over simple, but I like this track quite a lot.
I think that this track and the next, which are both produced by Kareem, it kind of sets kind of the vibe of the album for me. That's where I feel like, oh, okay, we're falling into like this. And Kareem's sound kind of punctuates the album for me a little bit more than... I think he has like 4 or 5 beats on this, and Last Name David has maybe like 2 or 3, but he really is the primary producer in terms of quantity on this album.
Yeah, I was wondering, because obviously Don Maker of Mount Kimby is the executive producer on the record, and obviously executive producer is a very nebulous term, because sometimes an executive producer just like listens to it and goes, okay, yeah, that's cool.
Let's rearrange the track here, right?
But this does kind of sound like Mount Kimby in places to me.
Okay.
There's a bit of that, Mount Kimby, James Blake subtract, like UK circa 2010, 2011 ambience and kind of darkness, but also like a musicianship and a jazziness that kind of runs through the record. And I was wondering if, he had kind of sort of papered over through everything to just make it sound cohesive and come together, because there are so many producers on here. I don't know specifically what his involvement would have been in that respect.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I'm looking at the time for the recording now being like 20 some minutes. I'm wondering if we really need to go through every track
on here.
I'll tell you what, listeners, today we're just kind of testing it out. Me and Jet trying to see what we want to do is just the duo until Spade gets back. If you want us to give like more track by track kind of like have more of those conversations, like we're willing to do it. We actually have the notes to do it. I don't know if it's absolutely necessary without us kind of just repeating a lot of themes, because I didn't take a lot of notes on like the full lyrics of each song or whatever. I've got plenty, but
Any favorites on there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My favorite song is "Free" by Devin, produced by Devin Morrison.
It's a good song.
I also like "Who Gives Me Breath," which is track number 12. Last name David. It's a kind of fun, upbeat sample loop. It feels very summer-y to me. It's warming up. Even though I got the hoodie on today, it is sunny and warm outside.
It's nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take this off maybe for the next recording, but I just like that. You know, if you he's got some dope lines on there. If you can just get me to the gates, I'm gonna talk my way in. I'll walk a thin line between sin. You know, he's really dope on that. I also like If It Was, also all produced by Gray Matter. It's got like these wind chimes that starts off with, morphs into a drum loop with I think like a saxophone or some type of instrument. And that beat is just super beautiful. Yeah, those are probably my 3 favorite tracks. How about you?
Who Gives Me Breath, 48, One Day at a Time.
That's, yeah.
I noticed that One Day at a Time and Who Gives Me Breath both include the lick, which maybe music nerds would have caught onto. There's one particular melody that just seems to show up in a lot of music. Both of those songs used it. I wasn't sure if there was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge there. Or if it's just because it's a popular, musical trope that shows up.
Probably a combination of both.
Probably a bit of both. But it kind of got a laugh out of me when I heard it the second time. I was like, oh wait, it's the lick again.
Word.
But yeah, no, One Day at a Time. I'm not really familiar with Kia, like the feature on there.
She's been on Mike albums or somebody. I know the name, but I am missing. I couldn't really remember as I was putting the notes together, and I didn't check. But she's on some albums, bro.
Right.
She might be on like a Earl album or something.
Right.
Put it in the comments if you remember, because I'll forget to even look it up. But yeah, it's a good performance.
I'll listen to an album if it's recommended in the comments section for sure.
Indeed. What about if you were with the folks and they gave you the aux? What is the song that you put on to try to sell people on this album?
It depends on the context and the friends. If I was with my white friends, maybe like Fuck Zoo.
Okay.
If I was like in a car.
Say for example, we're at Harry's sandwich shop.
Free.
Harajuku. Free. That's where I'm going with.
Play Free.
Yeah.
Got a bit of the banger element. People are like, oh, this is cool, but at the same time,
people aren't there to listen to music, but
But also, if you listen into it and also what Maxo is rapping about on the record, there's something a bit rewarding from that as well. And I think lyrically, it's one of the more interesting tracks on the album as well in terms of the content.
I'm with you on that.
So,
world in my hand, pinky finger on Japan, right? He said some shit like that. Got the world in my hand, pinky finger on Japan. Yeah. Shout out. I don't know if he put that in there because Devin Morrison's relationship with Japan or whatever, but hey, we out here, Tokyo.
Rappers love Japan.
Yeah, rappers do fucking love Japan. Did I tell you about the time I saw what was his name? The Lil Nas X. Did I tell you when I saw him at McDonald's in the airport?
No, I did. Yeah.
I was heading back to Cali to visit my folks, and like he was just in line at the McDonald's with an entourage, and I was like, God damn, that fool is taller and bigger than I thought. He's like tall as you.
I know that all of our friends in the Hilt were hanging out with Denzel Curry the other day.
Okay.
Like A Valley and Miles and them, they were all kicking it with Denzel Curry.
Okay. Yeah, I did see. I didn't know where the pictures were from, if they were like the past or whatever. Yeah, shout out. Yeah. So this album, I would recommend this album to fans of Pink Sifu. Obviously, fans of Kareem Riggins, I think also would enjoy this. I also was playing beats by Obliv earlier. I think there's a few projects by Obliv that kind of captured this kind of wavy kind of production vibe that is on this album, although Obliv kind of lacks the live instrumentation incorporated into a lot of these tracks. But I think Obliv is a good kind of beat album that you would listen to. But definitely Pink Sifu. If you like this, man, Pink Sifu is going to be like,
I would recommend this to people who like Tyler, the Creator.
Oh, that's a good pull.
Tyler, especially in his earlier years, like the horrorcore stuff aside, Tyler was always a fan of doing like his impression of the Neptunes, which would be like some really, really beautiful chord progressions and very jazzy chord progressions, but maybe a little dustier and lacking the finesse that Pharrell and Chad offer production-wise, and I hear a bit of that in here.
Okay.
Maybe the drumming when Kareem Riggins isn't involved is not quite on that same level of kind of accuracy and finesse, but at the same time, I do hear the same kind of thing. It's a little less aestheticized. It's a little less just like, hey, this is Tyler the Creator, the character.
Okay.
But I think people who like that kind of music would get into this.
So you're recommending it to the Tyler fans who are interested in like the compositions of Tyler and not the lyrical content?
Yeah,
'Cause this is far
like
in the other direction than the edgy early Tyler shit.
No, this
right?
is like Wolf, Cherry Bomb era Tyler, I would say. You know, so people who like that kind of stuff.
I mean, the production on it is very lush and beautiful, like Flower Boy, too.
Exactly,
You know what I mean? So, word. All right, shit. That's
and
a good
Spade.
pull.
I would recommend this to Spade.
Oh, yeah. L Spade. Tell us in the comments if you think L Spade is going to like this album, because I would vote yes. I would vote that he would enjoy this album, and I would vote that he wouldn't find it taxing. I think it's very well made. So, word up, man. Maxo, even
God has a sense of humor.
Even God has a sense of humor, man. Secret House Against the World. Album conversations and such. Like, subscribe, and maybe even get to that Patreon once we get it up.
Yeah.
And a beat. That's it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it. No, when all three of us are here, then I say it.
Okay.